Hi there and welcome to this course, A Roadmap to Action. In this course, I want to look at opportunity, explore how you could help bring more stability back to our planet, and how you and your business could adapt and transform for the better. I think we should start by reminding ourselves of what humanity can achieve, because I think that will help put us in the mindset that we need to tackle these global challenges. First, two people you probably didn't expect to hear about today, Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin. Even if you haven't seen their films, I bet you've heard of at least one of these two great figures. They were the kings of Hollywood's golden age of silent movies in the 1920s. But the 1930s arrived, and with it, so did the talkies, movies that were no longer silent. Buster Keaton kept on acting as he always had, continuing to use those exaggerated gestures that silent actors had used to make up for the fact that they couldn't speak their lines. Sadly, that didn't go down well in the talkies though, and his career never returned to its earlier peak. But what about Charlie Chaplin? Well, he totally reinvented himself. He took diction lessons and he threw out that tramp persona. In 1940, he featured in The Great Dictator, a film that would become his most successful ever. Okay, now let's talk about a man you likely haven't heard of, Pierre-Georges Latécoère. He took over his father's successful railroad components company in 1905, just after the Wright brothers had made the world's first plane flight. At the time, trains were by far the dominant form of transport. Planes were just something to amuse crowds. Latécoère thought that they had much greater potential though, even though he initially knew nothing about aeronautics. He could have continued with his comfortable life, but he took the huge risk of shifting the family company to this new industry, of leading it into uncharted territory without a map. A gamble that paid off a decade later when his vision helped save France, when he delivered 800 planes to his nation's military. What Charlie Chaplin and Pierre-Georges Latécoère have in common is success through adaptation. They were both living in times of great disruption. But what they both did was see the signs that others might have missed and use them to reimagine a possible and better future. And that is exactly the goal of this course. We are living in times of great disruption, and you need to see the signs. Although the situation is grave, there are opportunities to help and to transform your company, yourself, for the better. It's time for action, for adaptation, what I think will be the key word for this century. So, how does your organisation adapt to stop contributing to the world's environmental problems? To reduce your exposure to the risks created by rapid climate change, the collapse of biodiversity, the over-exploitation of natural resources? Companies need to take a step back and thoroughly transform the way they operate in the face of these systemic risks. Simply mitigating the impacts isn't enough. Companies are made up of you, me, people, individuals. We need to transform ourselves in order to transform our company and transform the world. As we'll see, one way to do this is to awaken the explorer in you, to overcome your fears in order to move forwards. Where to start then? You heard that if the history of the Earth was crammed into 24 hours, humans only show up a few seconds before midnight. But just think how far we've come in that time. Humans have always been capable of adaptation. In fact, you could say that the history of humankind is a history of adaptation. I'm not speaking here just about resilience. Resilience is the ability to cope with challenges as they arrive. We may well be resilient after a tsunami or a personal tragedy. We may overcome that individual challenge, but at the end, we may find ourselves in a similar situation to before. In the context of this global crisis, Resilience isn't enough. Today's global challenges require a collective answer, adaptation. Adaptation goes beyond resilience. It goes beyond just dealing with and then likely returning to where we were before. Adaptation is about shaping our future. It's about anticipating and imagining how we must change. Yes, we need to be resilient, but more so, we need to adapt. Look at the COVID crisis. We certainly were resilient. We stayed home, we wore masks, we accepted the rules imposed on us, not just for our health, but also the health of our family, our friends, our communities, the planet. But how many of us really adapted? That means not returning to something similar to what went before. How many of us reshaped our future, decided to shift away from previous habits, explored and established new ways of working, new ways of consuming? How do we go about doing just that? Well, in the next video, we're first going to look back before we look forward. I'll see you there. Welcome back. The history of humankind is a history of adaptation. Around 80,000 years ago, humans started migrating out of Africa. As they fanned out into new parts of the world, they discovered new terrain to conquer, new plants to eat, new animals to hunt. That required new instruments. And toolmaking is one of the things that really characterizes human evolution. From the crude choppers made by Homo habilis more than 2 million years ago, to the complex hooks, spears and objects that started to be made by Homo sapiens around 35,000 years ago. Tools have been a key enabler of human adaptation. And along the way, alongside this tool development, human genetics adapted too. Nordic populations, for example, evolved lighter skin and improved vitamin D synthesis in response to the lower levels of sunlight. Human evolution then took a dramatic turn 10,000-ish years ago, when the last glacial age came to its end. As the global climate became more stable and mild, humans didn't need to move with the seasons, meaning they could settle in the same place for generations. That led to agriculture, the domestication of animals, choosing and testing seeds and grains to see which worked best, and many, many more inventions and adaptations. However, not all adaptations were successful. I've mentioned earlier in these courses that the inhabitants of Easter Island exhausted their natural resources and had to abandon their settlements. The once flourishing Mayan civilization collapsed around 800 AD after a massive drought. Other times, adaptation averted disaster. In the early Edo period in Japan, about 400 years ago, a fast increase in the population led to the relentless and reckless chopping down of trees for construction and fuel. The supply of wood soon reduced, and with Japan at the time being a closed society, importing wood wasn't a solution. Fortunately, the shogun leaders understood what was happening, and they issued strict edicts to prevent overlogging. The forests recovered and disaster was averted. So we've seen that some humans are capable of adaptation, and that can not only advance civilization, it can also overcome disaster. But what enables our adaptation? Well, I think it's our ability and our desire to explore. Remember earlier when I was talking about humans fanning out of Africa? Initially, scientists presumed that they hit the road because they were looking for new food and resources. But now they increasingly think it was the urge to explore that put them on that path, a yearning to see what's out there. Which would mean that to adapt successfully, you have to adopt the mind of an explorer. Exploration is the key to adaptation. Sapiens explored out of Africa. The properties of new materials were explored, from the invention of copper to the cultivation of the humble potato. Vikings set foot in North America, followed by Columbus. Magellan discovered a route around the globe. Neil Armstrong set foot on the moon. The list goes on. Various studies by neurologists suggest that we can be split into three groups: constructors, conceptors, and explorers. Constructors build their way out of a problem, and that's half of us, apparently. Conceptors think their way out of a problem, and that's 40% of us. Explorers, though, they treat a problem as an opportunity to try something new, and that is the remaining 10% of us. And that split means that 90% of us look at the world and say, oh, we're in trouble, and just cope with it. Only 10% say, all right, let's create something else then. We need new creative solutions to overcome the current challenges. So the key question is, how do we shift 90% of us to be explorers, to go out looking for a new solution? What would get the 90% to go along with the 10% who are testing a new seed or suggesting we actually stop chopping down a forest? What drives exploration? You may think there's nothing left to explore. Maps are completely written, GPS satellites cover the planet. But that is clearly not the case. There are still plenty of new worlds to discover. And I'm not only speaking about outer space. Think about the oceans. Only a small number of explorers have dived to the bottom of the Marianas Trench, almost 11 kilometers below the surface. Can we go deeper? Well, the furthest down we've ever drilled was to 12 kilometers in Russia's Kola Peninsula. We still have a further 6,000 plus kilometers to explore before we get to the center of the Earth. And then there's scientific exploration. Think about the invisible world of bacteria living in our guts. There are billions of them, and scientists are just starting to understand their role in our health. Or how about exploring our own brains? I'd love to know more about mine. Scientists are just beginning to map this wonderful tool of ours, so watch this space. In our next video, I'm meeting with Christian Clot, a real explorer in both the traditional sense and this new sense. For 15 years, Christian has been trying to discover what it is in our brain that triggers our capacity to adapt. And he'll be sharing what he's found with us in the next video. I'll see you there.
Ice sheets or sand deserts, Amazonia, Patagonia, Siberia. The Earth is full of environments that are hostile for humans. And yet people have crossed them and colonized them for millennia. People such as Christian Clot. In 2016 and 2017, Christian spent 30 days in 4 of the Earth's most extreme places, by himself. He dealt with freezing waters and ever-changing extreme weather conditions with his kayak in Patagonia. He trekked through 40 degrees Celsius heat in the hottest desert in the world in Iran. He hacked his way through bug-infested rainforests in Amazonia. And in Siberia, he followed frozen rivers on skis. He followed in the footsteps of great explorers like Magellan, or those heroic 19th century expeditions to the North Pole, or to find the source of the Nile. But what he is looking for now is something else. He's not trying to map unexplored Amazonia. He's trying to map our brains. Neuroscientists do that every day, using MRI scans to understand which part of our brain controls what. But Christian considers our brain as a whole. He He wants to understand why we act like we act in a given situation. And that cannot be measured simply in an MRI. He has the idea that our brain is influenced by our guts, by our cardio rhythms, by our genetics, by our senses, by our environment. And that's why he travels the world. Before, during, and after each expedition, his brain is studied at the Human Adaptation Institute, where 40 scientists work with about 15 other labs around the world. What he's trying to figure out is how the human brain of an explorer adapts to handle the Iranian desert in midsummer, or the outer reaches of Siberia in midwinter, or the crushing humidity of the Brazilian jungle, or the freezing waters of Patagonia.
We try to understand how the brain is working when you are under danger, when you are facing a fear, when you are suddenly in a need to change. That's the idea of the expeditions.
Each of these environments are totally different and offer a huge range of unique challenges.
For example, if you are in a rainforest, you don't have the view. You can't see further. It's all trees, you don't see anything, so it's sound, it's smell, all these kind of things that can help you, but you avoid the vision. So that's interesting to see how our brain is able to work when one of the senses is away. If you go in Siberia or in Iran, in really hot or really cold, it's slow things. You need to understand that if you go too fast, you will die, because you can't perspire too much. You can't face minus 60 degrees going running on else. So each environment challenges in a different way for the brain. So we can understand everything we need to understand in this kind of environment.
There's one particular experience in Patagonia that had a real impact on him.
I was with a small Zodiac trying to find a way to go into the mountain. And I was maybe 12 kilometers far from my camp with my small Zodiac, and suddenly a big wave, 300 kilometers, going so fast, so big, and it just hit me, and it pushed me away, and I was suddenly in the water, water 2 degrees Celsius. You know a thing when you are a specialist. You know that normally you have 5 minutes to go outside, if not you will die. So, well, I try to swim, and I swim, and after 5 minutes, that's it. I mean, my body was so painful, I was unable to swim again. I was just thinking, okay, no, go down, please stop and die, it's finished. And then the storm was going on, and suddenly a big wind again pushed away the clouds, and I saw a scenery. It was so beautiful, so perfect. It was like a painting, a William Turner painting. And I suddenly remember the place I saw this painting. It was in New York, and I saw the person I was with. It was my girlfriend, a person I love so much. And then it is interesting. My brain decided to transform this memory in a hope. The hope of, I need absolutely to see this person again. I can't stop my life here. I need to go back to my life to see this person. And I swim again. And I get outside. And now I'm here and talking to you. There's two things I'm sure about. I'm alive because I have some fear and marvel. It's maybe all the point of adaptation. Is to try to push something, not only on the memory side, but of something we can build on and to create the future.
And this experience set the tone for his research.
Welcome back. I'm kind of in awe of Christian's adventures, to be honest. His drive to not only explore the amazing places on our planet, but also to explore what's going on inside our heads. And his talk of fear and marvel, I like those. They appear to be the two key emotions that trigger the brain of an explorer. Christian said he wants to set me a challenge, which I'm excited about, a little bit nervous. So Christian, hi. I love going on adventures too. I love exploring the world, but I'm not sure I'd be able to deal with those freezing temperatures that you did in Siberia for a month. So I'm wondering, out of those three types of people, I'd be a conceptor, I reckon, a thinker, maybe an explorer. Not to the extremes that you go to, though.
Well, you can try it if you want. Do you fight your fear, Greg?
Sure, yeah.
So, what is your worst fear, for example?
Well, I've got freaked out by the sheer power of water when I've been surfing before. So I guess being underwater and not feeling in control. Or perhaps the dark.
You don't like the dark, so that's easy in a way. You just have to find a place really dark and go inside and stay there for a time. That's the idea of fighting fear. To find things you fear and to go there and to try to fight it.
Well, I always want to test the science. That's led me to do some pretty nuts things before. So yeah, sure, I can go and stand in the dark. Does that mean that we're leaving the studio?
Yes, Greg.
Awesome. Okay, let's go. Bonjour, Damien.
Hi, Greg.
We're going in there?
Yeah, it's here. Let's go.
Okay, all right. These tunnels are amazing.
No, Greg. Let's down the light off.
Off?
Yes, off.
Okay. Not okay.
Greg,
Yeah.
this is a path. Go
Okay.
here alone and wait.
You want me to go alone?
Yeah, alone.
In here?
Yeah.
Whoa! Is this the edge? I have no idea what is down here because it's so dark. You just. Whoa! Is that a wall? Whoa! God, it made me jump. What was that noise? Okay, this isn't fun. I'm still really freaked out about what's around me because I just don't know. Okay, I'm done. I'm coming back. Oh, I think I can see you. Okay, all right. Let's get out of here. Come on. Lead the way. Never have I been more happy to see the daylight. I'm leaving you lot in here. Right, let's ring Christian. Christian.
So, Greg, how was it?
Yeah, that was scary. It was dark. It was so dark.
Yeah, it's quite normal, but how do you feel it? I mean, were you blocked or you try to fight it or you try to escape? What did you do?
Well, when the lights went out and all the crew turned their lights off, I froze. But I was just like, what else is down here? Don't move. That's the safest thing. I probably would have tried to run away, but it's like a maze. It's a labyrinth. I couldn't have got out. And then I slowly calmed down and kind of came to accept it a bit. But honestly, I was still scared. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Christian. Let's leave this place. Let's get back to the studio. We're back in the nicely lit studio. All right, Christian, tell me more. What happens in our brains when we face our fears?
You know, when you experience a fear, there's normally three kind of solutions. First, you can try to escape. That's the easiest one. You just go away and you forget it. Second solutions, you freeze and you wait. You do nothing. A lot of people try that, but again, it doesn't work. It don't change anything. And the third one is to fight. To try to find solutions, to go beyond the fear. That's the hard way. That's the difficult way. But if you do it, you create in your brain something really strong. You know that you're able to fight the fear. And knowing it will help you a lot for the next fear.
Right, so run away, freeze, or fight. And you suggest that we might be able to trigger our creative brain mechanism through facing our fears.
Yeah, fear is important, but not only fear, of course. I told you about marble too, and marble is really important. You need to have something you love, you strongly love, a reason to fight for it. You know, it's the idea of when I was in my water, in the 2 degrees water. It's not the painting or the wind or all these kind of things who helped me to decide I would fight and go outside the water that helped me. It's because I needed to see again the person I love. Fear helps you to decide, to learn, and marvel decide you to fight.
Okay, so you need to marvel, to love something, to fight for it. But I can see how this applies to helping protect our planet. I've been trying to share the beauty, the wonder, the marvel of the world, and also what we are doing to it, to inspire change, to inspire a drive to fight for it. And that marvel can also drive adaptation and transformation for businesses too. Any of us, whether we work in the forest or in the office, there is something to marvel at. Nature, architecture, relationships, art. But the question, I guess, is, for people who live a peaceful, comfortable life, Christian, what can they do to trigger that fear response, to kickstart their brain into that state?
We all experience fear. It can be a fear of being with other people, a fear of talking to your boss. For example, I always try to go in some places I'm not comfortable with. So it's helped me to always train the brain to be ready for anything and to train this ability to fight and to learn.
So in our everyday life, you encourage us to train our brain like a muscle, to embrace what scares us. And I should add that this doesn't need to be something dangerous, yeah? It can be tackling something that we're not used to, organising a meeting about something bigger than us, trying something you've always wanted to but never built up the courage to. However, there's a question that we need to answer. What if facing our fear causes us to fail? That is an important one, and it's one we'll return to in the next video. Welcome back. So I faced one of my fears for you. Well, for me. But we're still left with this question of how to respond if we try something, if we change something, and it leads to failure. Christian, how do you suggest that we cope with something like that?
You know, one of the person I really admire is Magellan. We are at the early beginning of the 16th century. I mean, we don't know anything about the world. We just discover South America. We know nothing more. We don't know about Pacific. We don't know about a lot of places. And he decided to do a travel, leaving Spain and to try to go all around the world. And he has just one thing. It was a map. And everything on this map was wrong. And it's not so important. Because of this map, he decided that something does exist. And he decided to try to go there to see. The reason you live is not important. It can be wrong. That's not the problem. But at the very moment you take the first step, you try something, you will succeed somewhere.
So you're saying to treat what could be called failure as actually another opportunity to explore further. Magellan was the first to sail around the globe, and he started his trip with an incorrect map, a failure of a map. Just like we might sometimes start a project without precise information. But Magellan managed to draw an entirely new map of the world. So what you're telling us, if I'm okay to apply this to finding a way to address our global climate change and challenges, is I guess that we all need to become the Magellans of the future?
We need all to try new things, to try new direction, new ideas. You don't have to wait to be perfect or to have the perfect tool or to have all the information.
Yeah, don't wait until you have the tools. Use what you have. Build better tools. Give it a go. Also, Christian, regarding directions, in a business sense, those directions, that map, they usually come from our bosses, yeah? The ones who are supposed to have a vision, right?
I mean, the leader gives you the map. It's a big map, full of information and full of wrong information, and full of white places on the map. You know, the unknown places. There it's your turn to draw something in this map. Your own small path, to correct some coast, to build a new island. If everybody tries to draw something on this big map, and really try to do something with it. If every human try to do the same, can you imagine the strength we have all together to draw a really nice, big and interesting map? That's what we have to do.
Okay, so this suggests that bosses make the maps, give directions, but also give space for everyone on the team to add their own details, to find their own routes, to contribute to a better map. Thank you so much, Christian. What an absolute pleasure to chat. So the environmental crisis we are facing is scary. We can run from it. We can freeze in the face of it. Or we can fight. We can fight for it, fueled by the fear, fueled by the marvel of the world that we want to protect. And by accepting small fears every day, we can trigger our brain to become an explorer, to adopt a mindset where we can create new ideas, come up with new solutions for a new vision. And let's not just be resilient to this changing world, to keep doing what we've been doing. We need to adapt to change. We need to draw a new map. We need to come up with new solutions for the problems. And to do that, we need to do it together. And we need to accept failure along the way. And this adaptation needs to happen not just with the bosses or the partners, but throughout business. Everyone needs to feel empowered and permitted to embrace the fear and to adapt. I encourage you to start thinking about the map that you would like to draw. What is your vision for the future? See ya.